Go.
All right, friends. Today we're going to start pinching pots with clay.
Yes.
And I have a feeling many of you out there, and probably you too, have pinched pots before.
A couple times.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to ask is a little hard and maybe a little radical, is that you gather up all your knowledge from past clay learning, put it in a nice little ball, take it out of your mind, and put it on a shelf.
Yeah.
So take a minute, do that, maybe close your eyes. Think about everything you've ever learned about working with clay. Thank it. And put it in a little cute box on a little mental shelf, and let's start completely fresh as beginners. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna work with clay for 2 to 3 weeks. And so we're gonna go really far. But in order to be able to go really far, it's important to have a few kind of key skills. And then you can be more free the more skills you've sort of incorporated. So the first skill we're gonna work on is pinching a perfectly round, perfectly even little bowl. Thin walls all around, and symmetrical. So it sounds pretty simple, and probably it sounds boring, but it's neither.
It is not.
So the first thing you want to do before you start working on clay is gather all your materials. So for a pinch pot, though, you don't really need that much. You need clay. You need a little damp rag or a paper towel for like wiping the dry bits of clay off your fingers. And then you need a board to work on, because sometimes you're going to want to spin your clay pot around. Yeah, and so there are boards already cut in the classroom for y'all to work on. And I would say before you get the clay out, take a pencil or a Sharpie and write your name on your board, because that's where your pots are always going to live. Another thing I like to have handy is my favorite hand cream. The thicker the better, because clay will actually draw the moisture out of your skin and use it for its own purposes, which is pretty cool if you think about that. But you'll end up with some kind of crackly skin. So for the very end, when you're all finished, there's that. Another tool that I really love to use on my hands when I'm working with clay is chapstick. Just put it on the little spots at the very end. Don't share chapstick though. Please use your own. We're gonna cut off our clay with some dental floss. Works perfectly well. And then, because I think it's really important to honor and acknowledge your teachers, the people who gave you the knowledge that you are then passing on, I just wanted to show you this amazing book by probably one of my most life-changing teachers. His name was Paulus Berenson. And we're going to be following the exercises in this book that he wrote called Finding One's Way with Clay. If you can get your hands on a copy of it, you should. I want to take a minute and show you some pictures to inspire your first endeavors. So, perfectly round, perfectly thin, perfectly even, symmetrical pinch pots.
Wow.
That's where we're going, friends.
What if they're not perfectly
Yeah.
round or even?
What if they're like the one on the cover?
Guess what? I have a promise to make, and it's that they won't be perfectly round or even or symmetrical.
I figured.
for
Okay.
like at least about 10 tries.
Good to know.
Yeah.
So, and that's probably good for everyone to know that let's say the first 10 pots you make, you might throw in the slip bucket. It takes time to get to know the clay and to get to know your own hands and also your mind and figure out how to work in harmony with the clay, your hands, and your mind all together. So please don't be upset. Don't be upset. They will look terrible and lumpy and awkward at first. It's part of the whole process. Okay. So, one thing you have to know is that clay is so heavy. Really work from your core anytime you're lifting a bag of clay.
Good to know.
If you lean over and try to pick it up, you might hurt yourself. Another thing to know is that clay is inherently wet. It's what makes it movable and malleable, and it needs to stay wet. And so what we have to do is always keep the clay covered. Keep it tightly wrapped in its plastic bag. Even in the middle of class, let's say we're going to go ahead and cut our piece. I'm only going to roll down enough of the bag to expose the clay that we're going to use. And then, using my tooth flossing length of floss, I'm going to cut the top of this into 9 cubes. So, the first thing I'm going to do is kind of get level and drag the floss. You have to hold it pretty tightly in your hands. I'm going to drag it as level as I can through the clay, which is then going to make a chunk. Now,